A figure of quiet distinction, Julian Vance, stood on the corner of Sterling Row, allowing the city's vibrant pulse to flow around him. He was a man accustomed to standing apart, yet today he chose to blend in, to become just another face in the sprawling metropolis. A crisp autumn wind teased the edge of his simple black jacket, a subtle reminder of the changing season. Julian tugged the brim of his baseball cap a little lower, a shadow obscuring the features known to so few, and watched the river of humanity stream past the gleaming glass facade of the luxury boutique that bore his name. Vance Prestige. The name was embossed in elegant gold lettering above the grand entrance of the sleek modern building. He watched as shoppers, draped in the very essence of wealth, moved in and out, their triumph swinging in branded bags. Through the vast, clear windows, the store's inner world of curated sophistication was on full display. Taking a slow, deliberate breath, a breath of preparation, Julian stepped toward the heavy glass door, pushing it open. A soft, melodic chime announced his arrival. Inside, the world transformed. It was a sanctuary of polished marble floors that mirrored the soft glow of the chandeliers, of plush velvet seats that invited patrons to linger, and of meticulously arranged displays showcasing the pinnacle of fashion and fine jewelry. The air itself was a carefully crafted cocktail, a delicate blend of expensive cologne and the smooth flowing notes of quiet jazz. Julian had personally orchestrated this symphony of senses, designing a space where luxury was not just sold, but felt, a place where opulence met comfort. But today, in his dark jeans, unassuming sneakers, and plain black jacket, he felt the intentional dissonance. He was an outsider in his own creation, and that was precisely the point. He had come to witness the unvarnished truth, to see how his customers were treated when the weight of his name and status was lifted. He had performed this ritual in his other locations, but this felt different. This was personal. This was the flagship, the heart of his empire, in the city that had forged him. Julian drifted toward a glass case, a constellation of designer watches glittering within. He leaned in, admiring the intricate dance of gears and the flawless finish of each piece. He knew them intimately, for his own hand had guided their selection. But today he was just another man, looking. From the corner of his eye, Julian saw him. Marcus Thorne, the franchise owner, a man standing sentinel near the main counter. Marcus was in his mid-50s, his graying hair thinning at the crown, his sharp suit seeming just a fraction too tight, a container struggling to hold its contents. He was engaged in conversation with a woman in a shimmering designer dress, his voice a low, practiced purr, a rehearsed smile plastered on his face. As Julian moved with quiet purpose toward the watch display, Marcus's gaze swept over him. The smile didn't just fade, it was instantly replaced by a subtle, yet unmistakable, frown. Julian feigned obliviousness. He reached out and picked up a watch, a sleek silver piece with a supple leather strap feeling its satisfying weight in his hand as he turned it over. "Excuse me," Julian said, his voice light and casual. "Could you tell me more about this watch?" Marcus approached, his steps measured and heavy, each one a small performance of reluctance. His eyes performed a swift, dismissive inventory of Julian, taking in the casual clothes, the low-brimmed cap. His expression was a carefully constructed wall of condescension. "That's one of our limited edition models," Marcus stated, his voice clipped and perfunctory, devoid of any genuine warmth. "Very exclusive. It might not be what you're looking for." Julian held his smile, a mask of polite curiosity. "Oh, and why is that?" Marcus's eyes narrowed, a predator sensing weakness. "It's a very high-end piece, quite expensive," he explained, as if to a child. "Perhaps you'd be interested in something a little more accessible." A flicker of irritation, hot and sharp, sparked within Julian. He knew Marcus didn't recognize him, but the raw assumption in his words, the casual dismissal, was a clear and ringing insult. Julian decided to press to gently probe the depths of this man's prejudice. "I like high-end pieces," Julian replied, his voice a calm counterpoint to the growing tension. "What makes this one so special?" Marcus let out a sigh, a theatrical exhalation of a man burdened by a tedious task. "It's crafted by one of the finest watchmakers in Switzerland," he recited from memory. "The materials are top tier and the craftsmanship is unparalleled. It's a collector's item, really, limited to a very small number of pieces worldwide." Julian nodded thoughtfully, still cradling the watch. "Sounds impressive. How much does it cost?" Marcus hesitated, his eyes scanning Julian's face one more time, searching for a sign, any sign, that this conversation wasn't a complete waste of his valuable time. "It's priced at $12,000, he said finally, a hint of challenge in his tone. "But as I mentioned, we have other options that might be more in line with your budget." Julian's smile remained fixed, but inside, a familiar frustration began to churn. He placed the watch back in its velvet cradle, his movements gentle and deliberate. He looked directly at Marcus. "And if I wanted to purchase this one?" Marcus's eyes flashed with open annoyance. "Well," he began, his voice taking on a harder edge, "I would need to see proof of payment first. We don't just let anyone walk out. With our best pieces." Julian's expression didn't waver, but his patience was wearing dangerously thin. "I see. So it's store policy to question a customer's ability to pay before even making a sale?" Marcus's tone became defensive, his posture stiffening. "It's not about questioning. It's about ensuring the integrity of our brand, maintaining our image. We simply can't let anyone handle our merchandise." Julian held Marcus's gaze for a long moment, a silent battle of wills playing out between them. Then he looked away, giving a slight knowing nod. "I understand," he said softly, turning away. From the display case, Julian began his slow walk toward the door. He could feel Marcus's eyes on his back, a palpable weight of judgment. He could almost hear the man's thoughts, the silent, smug dismissal. Julian pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped back out into the cool, indifferent air of the city. His mind was already spinning, replaying the encounter, analyzing every word, every look. He had come to observe, to see the unvarnished reality of his stores, and now he had. But what he had witnessed was a bitter disappointment. A slow-burning anger began to simmer just beneath his calm exterior. As he stood on the sidewalk, melting back into the anonymous stream of passers-by, Julian Vance knew with absolute certainty that this visit was far from over. He had seen enough, and he knew that action was required. Julian Vance stood outside the store for a moment, the city's symphony of sounds a dull roar in his ears as he gathered his thoughts. He had come seeking observation, but the experience had ignited a slow-burning fire in his blood. Taking a deep, cleansing breath, he turned, his jaw set with determination, and walked back through the glass door. He had to know if this was an isolated incident or a deeply ingrained pattern. The soft chime rang out once more as he stepped inside. This time, he didn't browse. His steps were direct, purposeful, leading him straight to the section where Marcus Thorne had been holding court. Marcus was still near the counter, his attention now devoted to his phone. When he saw Julian approaching, his eyes narrowed again, the earlier condescension solidifying into a look of pure annoyance. It hadn't been an accident, Julian realized. This was who the man was. Julian took another deep breath, centering himself, reminding himself of his purpose. He approached a display of exquisite designer coats, running his fingers over the fine, soft fabric of one in particular. The coat was dark, elegantly tailored, a perfect shield against the autumn chill. He lifted it from the rack, holding it up in front of himself, imagining its weight and feel. "Excuse me," Julian said, his voice once again calm and polite, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within him. "Could you tell me more about this coat?" Marcus looked up from his phone, his eyes flicking from the expensive garment to Julian's face. He hesitated for a beat, then pocketed his phone and walked over, the fake, practiced smile returning to his lips. "That's one of our premium items," Marcus said, his tone just as clipped and sterile as before. "Italian wool, handcrafted. It's from our latest, very exclusive collection." Julian nodded, his gaze fixed on the coat's impeccable stitching. "It's nice. How much is it?" Marcus's smile tightened at the corners. "It's priced at $2,500, he said, enunciating each word with painstaking clarity, as if explaining a complex concept to a simpleton. "These are meant for our high-end customers. We don't usually keep this kind of merchandise out for just anyone to touch." Julian raised a single eyebrow, his tone remaining neutral. "I see. And so you keep some items out of reach of your regular customers?" The polite facade on Marcus's face began to crack, revealing the hard, ugly truth beneath. "Our regular customers," he said curtly, "know what they can afford and what they can't. We cater to a specific clientele here, people who appreciate quality and have the means to purchase it." Julian placed the coat back on its hanger with deliberate care. He felt the frustration coiling in his gut, but he forced himself to remain composed. "I appreciate quality," he said evenly, "and I think I might be interested in this coat." A flicker of something between irritation and sheer disbelief crossed Marcus's eyes. He took a step closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a dirty secret. "Look," Marcus said, the condescension now dripping from his words, "I don't mean to offend, but perhaps you should look at some of our more affordable options. There's no point wasting time on items that are clearly out of your range." Julian's patience, already stretched to its limit, finally snapped. He met Marcus's gaze, his voice firm but controlled. "You don't know what my range is," Julian replied, "and assuming you do, based on how I look, is not good business practice." Marcus's expression hardened into a mask of indignation. He looked Julian up and down again, his assessment slow and insulting. "We have an image to maintain," Marcus said slowly, as if speaking to someone who couldn't possibly understand. "We can't just have anyone come in and handle our most valuable items. It's about preserving the brand." Julian held Marcus's gaze, his own anger, now a cold, clear light in his eyes. "Preserving the brand?" Julian echoed, his voice dangerously quiet. "By judging people based on their appearance? That's not how you build loyalty. That's not how you build respect." Marcus crossed his arms over his chest, his posture rigid and defensive. "Our customers appreciate exclusivity. They don't want to see just anyone in here touching everything. It's about the experience, the environment. It's what sets us apart." Julian let out a slow, measured breath, his eyes never leaving Marcus's. "And you think treating potential customers with disrespect is part of that experience?" Marcus shrugged, a smug, self-satisfied look crossing his face. "I think I know my customers better than you do. It's my job to protect the integrity of the store." Julian didn't respond immediately. He let his gaze sweep around the opulent store, taking in the gleaming displays, the carefully arranged merchandise, and the other customers who were now beginning to notice the charged tension between the two men. Then he turned his focus back to Marcus. "Thank you for your time," Julian said finally, his voice as cold as ice. "I think I've seen everything I need to see." Without waiting for a reply, Julian turned on his heel and walked away, heading for the door. The chime rang softly as he stepped outside, back into the city's embrace. This time, Julian didn't linger. He walked briskly down the street, his mind a maelstrom of thoughts. What he had experienced was unacceptable, not just as a businessman, but as a human being who believed in the simple, fundamental principle of treating others with respect. He had come to see the reality of his store's operations, and now he had. Julian's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about a coat or a watch. It was about the very values he had built his company upon, values that were being systematically dismantled within these very walls. As he walked, his anger began to cool, transforming into a hard, sharp resolve. He knew what he needed to do today He had been judged, dismissed, and disrespected. Tomorrow he would return. Not as Julian Vance, the customer, but as Julian Vance, the owner, and things were going to change. Julian spent a restless night, the condescending words of Marcus Thorne echoing in his mind, each replay sharpening his resolve into a fine, dangerous point. By dawn, his frustration had crystallized into a clear, decisive plan. He would return to the store, not for another confrontation, but to dig deeper. He needed to understand if Marcus's toxic behavior was a cancer that had spread, if this was how he treated everyone, or just those who didn't fit his narrow, prejudiced mold. Dressed once more in his uniform of anonymity, jeans, sneakers, and the same black jacket, Julian walked back into the temple of luxury he had built. The chime above the door sang its familiar, melodic greeting. The store was quieter today, a hushed reverence in the air with fewer customers drifting among the displays. Julian made his way directly to the jewelry section, his gaze drawn to a glass case where an array of diamond bracelets and necklaces lay like captured starlight. Each piece sparkled with a fiery brilliance under the soft, focus lighting, their price tags tucked away with discreet elegance. As Julian studied a particularly intricate diamond bracelet, he sensed Marcus's presence out of the corner of his eye. The man was standing near the back of the store, his voice low but firm as he spoke to a young woman with a perpetually worried expression. It was Clara Hayes, the assistant manager. She was nodding as Marcus spoke, her hands fidgeting nervously. With a clipboard, Julian strained his ears, catching snippets of the conversation carried on the still air. "I don't care if he's a potential customer," Marcus hissed, his voice a venomous whisper. "We have a standard to maintain. Keep an eye on him." Clara glanced over in Julian's direction, her face a canvas of conflict, worry warring with sympathy. Her eyes met Julian's for a fleeting, apologetic moment, before she quickly looked away. Julian pretended not to have noticed, his attention seemingly absorbed by the glittering jewelry. He knew now. Marcus was actively instructing his staff to profile him, to treat him as a threat. The realization was a cold weight in his stomach, solidifying his decision to force a final confrontation. He would see just how far Marcus's bigotry extended. Julian motioned for a sales associate to assist him. A young woman approached, her expression polite, but carefully reserved. "Good morning," Julian said, offering a warm, disarming smile. "Could you tell me more about this necklace?" The sales associate cast a nervous glance over her shoulder at Marcus, who was now watching their interaction with the intensity of a hawk. She hesitated, then looked back at Julian. "This is one of our signature pieces," she said quietly. "It's crafted with the finest diamonds and set in platinum. It's priced at $15,000. Julian nodded, a look of genuine appreciation on his face. "It's beautiful," he said. "Could I take a closer look?" Before the young woman could respond, Marcus strode over, his face a thundercloud of authority. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, directing the question not to Julian, but to his employee. "No problem at all," Julian interjected calmly, stepping forward to meet the challenge. "I was just asking about this necklace. I'd like to inspect it further." Marcus's eyes flashed with irritation. "I don't think that's necessary," he said, his voice laced with the same thick condescension as the day before. "As I mentioned, we have other pieces that might be more suitable for you." Julian held his gaze, a steady, unyielding force. "I'm interested in this one," he stated firmly. "I'd like to see how it looks." Marcus crossed his arms, his patience finally and completely exhausted. "Our policy is to reserve pieces like this for customers who are serious about purchasing. I can't have just anyone trying on our most valuable items." Julian's calm demeanor began to fray, his own frustration surfacing. "And what precisely makes you think I'm not serious?" Marcus looked Julian up and down, a sneer twisting his lips. "Experience," he said coldly. "I know who can afford what." It's my job to protect the integrity of this store and its brand. We have a reputation to uphold." Julian felt his temper rising, a hot tide threatening to breach his control, but he kept his voice steady. "And you uphold that reputation by judging people based on how they look, by refusing service to someone because you think they don't belong?" Marcus's expression remained unchanged, a mask of arrogant certainty. "It's not personal, it's business. Our customers expect a certain level of exclusivity. I can't afford to waste my time on people who aren't serious buyers." Julian took a step closer, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. "And how many serious buyers have you turned away because you made assumptions? How many people have you disrespected because you decided they didn't fit your narrow idea of a customer?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I run this store the way I see fit," he said sharply. "And frankly, I don't have to explain myself to you." Julian held Marcus's gaze, the anger now simmering just beneath the surface, visible and potent. "You may not have to explain yourself to me," Julian said quietly, "but you will have to answer to someone. This kind of treatment isn't just bad for business, it's wrong." For the briefest of moments, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's eyes before his hardened expression snapped back into place. "If you don't like how things are done here, you're welcome to leave," he said dismissively. "There are plenty of other stores that might suit your tastes." Julian took a deep breath, stepping back. He glanced at Clara, who had watched the entire exchange with a pained, worried expression. "Thank you for your time," Julian said to Marcus, his voice now as cold and hard as the diamonds in the case before them. "I'll be sure to let the right people know exactly how you run your store." With that, Julian turned on his heel and walked out. The door's chime seemed to echo louder than before, a final punctuating note to the ugly encounter. As he stepped back onto the bustling street, Julian knew precisely what he had to do next. He had seen enough. Marcus's behavior was not an isolated incident. It was a mindset, a toxic philosophy that needed to be surgically removed. As Julian walked away, his resolve solidified into a cold, hard certainty. He had hoped for a different outcome, but now he was sure. Change was necessary, and it was going to start at the very top. Julian spent the night not in anger, but in quiet preparation for what was to come. The next morning, he did not return to the store on Sterling Row. Instead, he drove to his company's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Inside, the atmosphere was one of hushed, focused efficiency. Phones rang softly, and employees moved with a quiet purpose through the polished halls. Julian walked into the executive conference room, a vast space dominated by a long, polished table and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking panorama of the city. He took his seat at the head of the table, his expression calm, his resolve absolute. He had arranged for Marcus Thorne to meet him here under the simple pretext of discussing store performance and future goals. He knew it was the one summons Marcus would never ignore. Julian's assistant, Amelia, stood discreetly by the door, waiting. Soon, Marcus entered the room, his usual air of smug confidence wrapped around him like an expensive cloak. He wore his sharpest suit, and his face held a look of mild curiosity mixed with a hint of impatience. He clearly believed he had been called in for a routine checkup, perhaps even to receive a commendation for his store's performance. Marcus's confident stride faltered when he saw Julian sitting at the head of the table. His eyes widened in shock. He glanced at Amelia, then back at Julian, his mind visibly scrambling to place the face from the store in this new, powerful context. Confusion warred with dawning horror on his features. Julian remained silent for a long moment, allowing the reality of the situation to sink in, letting Marcus absorb the scene before him. Then he spoke, his voice calm, clear, and imbued with an authority that left no room for doubt. "Take a seat, Marcus," Julian said, gesturing to the chair directly across the table. Marcus hesitated, his movements suddenly clumsy and uncertain, before pulling out the chair and sitting down. "Good morning, Mr. Vance," Marcus stammered, his voice cautious. I wasn't expecting to see you here. Is everything all right?" Julian leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady and penetrating. "No, Marcus. Everything is not all right. I've asked you here to discuss some very serious concerns I have about your behavior at the store." Marcus's eyes flickered with confusion, quickly followed by a desperate attempt to regain his usual bluster. "Concerns? About what? I've been running the store the way I always have. Sales are up. The brand image is strong. If there's a problem, I'd be happy to address it." Julian's expression remained impassive. "Sales numbers are not the issue here, Marcus. The issue is how you treat people. I visited your store over the past 2 days. You didn't recognize me because I came as a regular customer, dressed in casual clothes." Realization crashed over Marcus's face like a tidal wave, followed instantly by a flash of raw panic. His mouth opened, then closed, as his mind raced for an excuse, an explanation, a way out. Julian continued before he could find one. "I saw firsthand how you judged me based on my appearance," Julian said, his voice level but firm. "You made assumptions. You were dismissive. And you refused to provide the same level of service that you would presumably offer to someone you deemed a worthy customer. This isn't just about how you treated me, Marcus. It's about how you likely treat countless others. Anyone who doesn't fit your narrow, prejudiced view of who deserves respect." Marcus swallowed hard, his face paling. "Mr. Vance, I didn't know it was you. If I had known—" Julian cut him off, his voice sharp. "That is precisely the problem. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with basic human decency. This company was built on the principles of inclusivity and respect. We built our brand on the idea that luxury is not just about exclusivity, but about making people feel valued. You have turned my store into the very opposite of what it is meant to be." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I was just trying to maintain the brand's image, to keep it exclusive and high-end. Our customers expect a certain atmosphere, a certain clientele." Julian's voice hardened. "Our customers expect quality products and respectful service, regardless of what they look like or how they dress. They deserve to feel welcome, not judged. Your behavior undermines everything this brand is supposed to represent." Marcus's face was now a mask of pure desperation. "Mr. Vance, please, I can change. I understand now. I'll do better. I'll implement training, whatever you need." Julian shook his head slowly, a deep sadness in his eyes. "It's too late for that, Marcus. Your attitude isn't something that can be fixed with a training seminar. It's a fundamental problem with how you see people, and it is not something I can allow to continue poisoning my company. Effective immediately, I am terminating your franchise agreement. You are no longer responsible for that store." Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious. I've been with this company for years. I helped build that store's reputation. You can't just cut me off like this?" Julian stood up, his gaze never wavering. "Yes, I can, and I will. Your behavior is a reflection on the entire company, and I will not let one person's prejudice tarnish what we have all worked so hard to build. Security will escort you out. You will receive instructions on the termination process." Marcus shot to his feet, his face a mottled mix of anger and disbelief. "You're making a huge mistake. I'm the best manager this company has. You'll regret this." Julian remained calm, his voice steady. "No, Marcus. The mistake was allowing you to remain in a position where you could do so much harm to this company's values. I will not regret ensuring that my stores are run by people who understand what this brand truly stands for." Marcus stared at Julian for a moment longer, then turned abruptly and stormed out of the room, his angry footsteps echoing down the long hallway. Julian watched him go, feeling not triumph, but a quiet, somber sense of resolution. This wasn't just about firing one man, it was about protecting the soul of his company. He turned to Amelia, who had witnessed the entire exchange in silence. "Amelia, please ensure Marcus is escorted out and that the transition process begins immediately." Amelia nodded. "Yes, Mr. Vance. I'll handle it." Julian walked over to the vast window, looking out over the sprawling city below. He had taken a necessary, painful step today. There would be more work to do, more changes to make, to ensure that every single store under his brand upheld the values he held sacred. But for now, a sense of calm settled over him. The message had been sent loud and clear. Respect and integrity would always come first. Julian stood at the large windows of his office, gazing out at the relentless energy of the city below. The meeting with Marcus had gone as expected, but the sense of finality brought no satisfaction, only a heavy sense of responsibility. He knew firing the man was a necessary amputation, but it was only the first step in treating a much larger disease. As he turned from the window, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Clara Hayes, the assistant manager from the store. She had agreed to meet him at headquarters to discuss the store's future. Julian walked down the hall to the conference room where Clara was waiting. As he entered, she stood up quickly, her nervousness a palpable aura around her. Her brown hair was pulled back in a neat, professional bun, and she wore a simple blouse and skirt, her eyes reflecting a mix of anxiety and cautious hope. Julian offered her a reassuring smile. "Thank you for coming, Clara," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I know it's been a stressful couple of days." Clara nodded, her hands clasping and unclasping in her lap. "Yes, Mr. Vance, it has been. I heard about what happened with Marcus. The staff is talking. They're worried about what's going to happen." Julian sat down across from her, his expression serious but kind. "I understand. That's why I wanted to talk to you. Marcus's departure was necessary for the health of this company, but I know it leaves a great deal of uncertainty. I want to make sure the store is in good hands moving forward." Clara nodded again, her gaze direct. "I appreciate that, Mr. Vance. I've always tried to do my best at the store, but it's been difficult. Marcus had his way of doing things, and it didn't always align with what I thought was right." Julian watched her carefully, seeing the integrity and strength beneath her nervous exterior. "I saw how you handled yourself in the store, Clara. You remained professional even when the situation was tense. That's why I would like to offer you the position of interim manager. You know the staff, you know the store, and I believe you understand what this brand truly stands for." Clara's eyes widened, a wave of surprise and profound relief washing over her face. "Interim manager," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Vance, I don't know what to say. I never expected this." Julian smiled warmly. "Say you'll accept. Say you'll help me ensure that store reflects the values we believe in. I need someone I can trust to lead, someone who will not make the same mistakes Marcus did." Clara's hands trembled slightly as she gave a firm nod. "Yes, Mr. Vance, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes to make the store what it should be. I've always believed in treating every customer with respect no matter what." Julian's expression softened. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You'll have my full support, and we'll work together to make the necessary changes. I want you to feel empowered to address any issues, to ensure that every single customer who walks through that door feels welcome and valued." Clara looked visibly relieved, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. I've always cared so much about the store and the people who work there. I just never felt like I had the authority to make a real difference." Julian nodded. "You do now. I'll make sure you have all the resources you need. We'll start with comprehensive retraining for all staff, focusing on customer service, empathy, and inclusion. I want every person who walks into that store to feel like they belong, whether they're buying a $10,000 watch or just browsing." Clara's confidence seemed to blossom as they spoke. "I can do that. I know the staff will respond well. They just need to know that their efforts are supported and that they're working in a positive, respectful environment. Julian leaned back in his chair, feeling a sense of satisfaction he hadn't felt in a long time. Good. I'll be checking in regularly, but I trust you to handle things on the ground. We're in this together, Clara. The success of that store isn't just about profits. It's about building a community founded on respect and inclusivity. Clara smiled, the last of the tension leaving her shoulders. I won't let you down, Mr. Vance. I'll make sure the store represents the very best of what your brand stands for. Julian stood, offering his hand across the table. I know you will. Thank you for stepping up. I'm looking forward to seeing the positive changes you'll bring. Clara shook his hand firmly, a new sense of purpose shining in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Vance. I'm looking forward to making a real difference. As Clara left the conference room, Julian felt a renewed sense of optimism. The events of the past few days had been challenging, but they had also been a catalyst for necessary fundamental change. He knew there was more work to be done, more stores to visit, more managers to meet. But today was a crucial step in the right direction. He had placed a person of integrity in a position of power. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the skyline, Julian Vance felt a quiet sense of pride. He was more than a businessman. He was a leader with a profound responsibility to use his position to make a positive impact on the world. And with people like Clara Hayes by his side, he knew his stores would thrive, not just as purveyors of luxury, but as beacons of welcome for all. The day after Marcus's termination, Julian wasted no time. He scheduled a meeting with the entire store staff, his priority being to quell their anxieties and clearly communicate the new direction. He knew that stability and transparency were paramount in transforming the store's culture into one that truly reflected the brand's core values of inclusivity and respect. The meeting was held in a private conference room at the headquarters. The staff filed in, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. Clara Hayes stood at the front of the room with Julian, a clipboard in her hand, looking more confident and assured than she had the day before. Julian stood to address the room, his voice calm and reassuring. Thank you all for coming, he began. I know the past few days have been challenging, and I want to be completely transparent with you about what's happening. Marcus Thorne is no longer with the company. His departure was a necessary step to realign this store's operations with the values we stand for as a brand. A low murmur rippled through the room. Julian could see the questions in their eyes, the uncertainty. He continued, making eye contact with as many of them as he could. I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Your positions are not in jeopardy. We value each and every one of you and the work you do. However, we will be making some changes to ensure that our store provides a welcoming and respectful environment for all customers, regardless of who they are or how they look. This isn't just about making sales, it's about building relationships. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. As your new interim manager, I'll be leading our team in these efforts. We're going to focus on comprehensive customer service training, and I will be working closely with each of you. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about growing together as a team and improving how we interact with the people who honor us with their business. One of the sales associates, a young man named Leo, raised his hand. What exactly does this training involve? Clara answered. The training will cover everything from initial greetings to handling sensitive situations. It will include workshops on cultural awareness, empathy, and inclusivity. The goal is to make sure every one of us feels empowered to provide the best possible service. We'll start with a series of short sessions over the next few weeks, with ongoing training throughout the year. Another employee, an older woman named Eleanor, spoke up. And what happens if we see behavior that doesn't align with these values? Do we report it directly to you? Yes, Julian interjected firmly. You can report any concerns to Clara, and you can also come directly to me. My door is always open. We take these issues with the utmost seriousness, and I want everyone to feel safe and supported in speaking up. We are building a culture of accountability and respect, and that starts with all of us." A palpable shift occurred in the room. The tension began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious optimism. They weren't just being told about changes, they were being included in them. A young woman named Maya, who worked as a cashier, raised her hand. "What if customers come in with the same attitude Marcus had? How do we handle situations where customers are being rude or discriminatory?" "That's an excellent question, Maya," Clara responded. "Part of our training will include conflict resolution and de-escalation techniques. If you ever feel uncomfortable, or if a customer is behaving inappropriately, do not hesitate to call a manager. We want you to feel empowered to handle situations professionally, but we are also here to support you." Julian nodded in agreement. "Remember, you are not alone in this. We are a team, and we will work together to make sure everyone, both staff and customers, feels respected." The staff seemed to relax further, reassured by the clear plan and the promise of support. "Thank you all for your time," Julian said, concluding the meeting. "I am confident in each of you, and I believe we can make this store a model of what our brand truly stands for. Let's work together to make that happen." As the staff began to file out, some stopping to ask Clara questions, Julian felt a sense of hope. He had made the right decision in promoting her. She was already demonstrating the leadership qualities Marcus had so profoundly lacked. As the room emptied, Julian turned to Clara. "You did well today," he said. "The staff respects you, and they're looking to you for guidance. Keep that momentum going." Clara smiled, looking both relieved and determined. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. I won't let you down. I believe we can make a real difference here." "I know you will," Julian replied. The confrontation with Marcus had been difficult, but it was necessary. Justice wasn't just about punishing wrongdoing. It was about creating an environment where such behavior could not take root. Julian was committed to building a company where respect, inclusivity, and integrity were not just words in a mission statement, but the guiding principles behind every action and every interaction. The store was already showing signs of a profound transformation. The atmosphere felt lighter, more vibrant, the staff more engaged and genuinely welcoming. Julian's decision to make Clara the interim manager had been the right one. She had implemented the training sessions with remarkable efficiency, and the team had responded with an enthusiasm that spoke volumes. They were eager to help create a more inclusive and respectful environment. Julian had kept his promise to check in regularly, and today he decided to make an unannounced visit. As he entered the store, the familiar chime sounded, and he was immediately greeted by Leo, the sales associate who had voiced his concerns during the staff meeting. "Good morning, Mr. Vance," Leo said, a warm, genuine smile on his face. "It's great to see you." "Good morning, Leo," Julian replied, shaking his hand. "How's everything going?" Leo nodded enthusiastically. "Really well, actually. The training sessions have been incredibly helpful, and Clara has been an amazing leader. The whole team feels more connected, and we're all on the same page about how we want to treat our customers." A smile touched Julian's lips. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Keep up the good work. I'm proud of how you've all handled this transition." As Julian moved further into the store, he observed the change for himself. Customers were being greeted warmly, staff members were assisting without hesitation, and a general air of positivity permeated the space. It was a world away from the cold, judgmental atmosphere he had encountered under Marcus's reign. He found Clara near the back of the store, speaking with a customer. She glanced up, saw Julian, and gracefully excused herself. "Mr. Vance, it's good to see you," she said, her expression bright. "You too, Clara," Julian replied. "I just wanted to stop by and see how things were going. It looks like you've done a fantastic job." Clara's face lit up with pride. "Thank you, Mr. Vance. The team has been amazing. They've really embraced the changes, and we're seeing wonderful feedback from customers. I think we're on the right track." "I agree," Julian nodded. "You've turned things around here quickly, and I couldn't be more pleased. Their conversation was interrupted by the loud ring of the door chime. Julian turned to see Marcus Thorne, standing at the entrance. His suit was less crisp than usual, his face etched with worry. His eyes scanned the store, landing on Julian and Clara. Julian's expression hardened slightly. He had not expected to see Marcus here again. Marcus made his way over to them, his step slow, his posture stripped of its former arrogance. "Mr. Vance," he began, his voice almost a plead, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I need to talk to you. Please, just give me a moment." Julian glanced at Clara, who looked surprised but remained silent. "All right, Marcus," Julian said coolly. "You have a moment." Marcus took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging. "I came to apologize," he said. "I know I was wrong. I've had time to think, and I realize now that I made a terrible mistake. I judged people unfairly. I let my prejudices get in the way of my job. I am truly sorry, Mr. Vance." Julian listened, his expression unreadable. "I've been with the company for years," Marcus continued, his voice thick with desperation. "I care about this brand, about this store. Please give me another chance. Let me prove that I can change, that I can run the store the way you want it to be run. I'll do anything." Julian was silent for a moment, letting the man's words hang in the air. He thought about the countless customers Marcus had likely dismissed, the disrespect he had shown Julian himself. This sudden change of heart felt born of desperation, not genuine remorse. "I appreciate your apology, Marcus," Julian said finally, his voice calm but firm. "But this wasn't about one mistake. It was about a pattern of behavior, a mindset you've demonstrated for years. What I witnessed wasn't an oversight. It was the result of a deep-seated attitude that does not align with our values." Marcus's face fell. "Mr. Vance, please," he begged. "I can learn, I can change. Just give me the store back, and I'll prove it to you." Julian shook his head slowly. "The decision has been made, Marcus. The store is thriving under Clara's leadership. The staff has responded positively to the changes. I cannot go back to the way things were. My responsibility is to this company. And to every customer who walks through those doors, allowing you to return would undermine everything we've worked to achieve." Marcus's shoulders slumped, his last hope fading. "I understand," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I just thought maybe—" Julian's voice softened slightly. "Richard, I hope you take this as an opportunity to reflect and to grow. This isn't about punishment. It's about ensuring the right people are in place to uphold the values of this brand. I wish you the best, but you will not be getting this store back." Marcus nodded, his eyes downcast. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Vance," he whispered. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the store, his footsteps heavy with defeat. Julian watched him go, a mixture of pity and resolve in his heart. The apology had come too late. His responsibility was to his company, his employees, and his customers. Clara stood quietly beside him, her expression one of relief. "Thank you for not letting him come back," she said softly. "I think the staff would have been very worried." Julian nodded. "I made my decision based on what's best for the store and the people who work here. You've done a great job, Clara. Keep it up. We're building something special here, and I'm confident in your ability to lead." As he left the store, Julian felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was what he had worked for, to create a brand that stood not just for luxury, but for respect, integrity, and inclusion. And with the right people in place, he was confident that vision would continue to thrive.